Hey guys, welcome to the Comic Den. I'm your host Ace Knuckles, and this is another episode of Monthly Reads. We're going to go through all the stuff we read in February. So, in the comments, tell me what you guys have been reading. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. If any of the stuff that you are reading is the same stuff I'm reading, let's talk about it. If you hate what I'm reading, let me know. Okay, so we're going to start off with kind of a throwback. I really hate crossovers. If you've watched anything where I've talked about it, I just really hate them. It's for one, if I'm not getting the stuff in my pull list that's in the crossover, it's annoying that I have to now go buy something just so that it kind of fits in. Also, if I don't normally get it in my pull list, then whenever I go to my comic spot, I go about once a month, and so maybe two issues have gone through, and I haven't been getting it in my pull. So the Drowned Earth, his it was really weird for me. I'm still missing one issue. I think it was the Teen Titans crossover, but I finally just got the order that it's supposed to go in, because even the order was a little weird. You started with Aquaman and the Justice League #1, and then you end with Justice League Aquaman #1. And it was really weird. Oh, you don't end with that. Sorry. You end with the Justice League right here. So I just said I'll get them all. I'll make sure that I have them. Then I kind of got distracted by other stuff going on, and so I never really picked it up. And so finally I sat down and I got the order, I put them all there, and I read it, and it was really good. It's one of those things that'll make a better trade than it was coming out issue by issue. I got a little bit lost whenever I was going through and reading it, but once I got it all together, it was a much better story. And it also sets up the new Aquaman story that I've already covered in a couple other ones. But that brings us to our next one, which is Aquaman. I've got 44 and 45, and the story is surprisingly good. I get real nervous, and I've said this before, I get real nervous whenever they change creative teams. And that's mostly just because I get used to a certain way of storytelling. I get used to a certain art style that's used, and I get used to just a writer, using the character in a certain way. And so anytime they get ready to change, it really worries me. I've been absolutely pleased with the way that this story's going. It's a new take, and I mean, it's pulling straight from the Drowned Earth story. It kind of picks up right where that leaves off. And it's separated Aquaman from the rest of the universe, which is kind of nice. It's almost like the Green Lanterns. The Green Lantern's great in Justice League whenever they're doing things. But I almost feel like whenever they're separated and they're their own story, they do better. Whereas Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, they can all be in the Justice League, and it's still just as good as the regular stories. I think Aquaman's really best told whenever he's by himself, and it's a phenomenal story. Obviously, it's a story that has an end on it, so I don't know if the same creative team is going to continue on. But I'm down for it if they do. Yeah, I think you guys should all go pick it up. I mean, at least get the trade whenever it comes out. But yeah, it's definitely pretty high on my recommended list. Also, the art in there is phenomenal. To kind of sidetrack, I just finished my first comic book. I finished it. Chris Rao did the art over at Mr. Rao Art, so go check him out. I did the writing on it, and I kind of helped design the panels, and we brainstormed kind of the design of everything. And so it's really, I'm going through and I'm looking at panel designs, I'm looking at art styles, I'm looking at page breaks, I'm looking at all of those things, and I'm gathering as much as I can from these comic books. And the Aquaman story has some of the best. The only one I would say that's better now is Thor from Jason Aaron's run. Those panel designs are fantastic. So yeah, go check it out. Next, we have kind of a bigger stack. We have Avengers 13, 14, and 15. So 13 was just kind of a standalone. I'm really liking the story breaks that Jason Aaron's doing, where you get some present day Avenger stuff going on, blah, 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 which is a pretty interesting story. I'm not sure what direction they're taking it in, but they've reintroduced Blade into it. But I think my favorite part of Jason Aaron running the whole Avengers realm is that they're going back to the first. So we had the first Ghost Rider. We've had they may have talked about Odin more. I can't remember. But they don't have a single specifically dedicated to Odin. But now they just did the Iron Fist, and I'm assuming they're going to continue. They'll do 3 issues or 4 issues, and then you get one of the old Avengers back. So it's going to be real interesting to see. I think they still have Doctor Strange's first predecessor. I think it's actually Agamotto. And then you have Odin, you have the Phoenix Force, Starbrand, and then I think there's another one. I can't remember. If I am missing one, let me know down in the comments. Moving on. Sorry, if it feels like I'm rushing through this, it's because I am. I have a giant stack of comics right here, and so I don't want this to be an hour-long video. But next we have, let me make sure that these are all the right ones. Yep, and yep. All right, sorry. So we have Batman 62, 63, 64, 64 variant cover. Whenever I saw this, I just had to get it. I love the art on it for one, but also the fact that they kind of turned it sideways and just kind of made it crazy. Really appealed to me. And then we have 65. Sorry, I'm getting confused. And if you'll notice, a couple of them, the 64 and 65, they are another crossover, which, again, I won't go into how I feel about crossovers. But this one worked out because I also get the Flash. It's also a continuing story, and it seems like Tom King is going with that motif where we had the Button, which was another crossover with the Flash, and then it's leading into the Aftermath and kind of working right in between the beginning and end of Heroes in Crisis. And so it's really exploring a lot of those, what's going on during the crisis, which, I mean, unless it's going to be a tie-in, typically doesn't happen. Which is another thing I absolutely hate, is whenever you have this big, huge event and then tons of tie-ins. There have only been a couple of them that I've been into, and that was whenever Marvel did their most recent run on Secret Wars. I thought all of those tie-ins that I read were fantastic. And then Dark Knight's Metal. Dark Knight's Metal did a fantastic job of doing the tie-ins as well. But usually it's very annoying whenever I feel like I have to go pick something up. Civil War II was the worst about that. So you'd have the main storyline, and then in the tie-ins, very important things would be happening in the tie-ins, but I didn't pick up any of the tie-ins. One, because I don't have $1 million, and there were a ton of tie-ins. And two, because I just don't enjoy the stories that were tying in. I don't pick up, Ant-Man and Wasp or whatever it was that was tying in. I was just using that as an example. But yeah, it's just annoying whenever I have to try and piece together a story whenever I don't pick up all the tie-ins, or if you're going to require me to pick up the tie-ins to fully comprehend what's going on in the story. It's annoying. Not that my opinion has any weight on it. If you hate tie-ins, let me know. If you love tie-ins, let me know why I'm wrong in the comments. All right, next we have DC Rebirth Detective Comics, and that's Volume 1. I picked this up. I read Detective Comics anyway, but I picked this up for like a rundown episode in the future. Also, even though I kind of know how all of this turns out, I want to get caught up. I started late in the game with Detective Comics, and so it's nice to kind of get the official book on it without going back and trying to find all the individual issues. I am a completist in that if I get in on the Detective Comics train at the beginning of the story, that's fantastic. I didn't. Whenever Detective Comics started coming out for Rebirth, I had drastically reduced my comic intake per month, but it worked its way in just because I had heard such great things, and a couple of comics have done that over the years. But yeah, I love this story. I loved the direction that they are going with it, and kind of now we're dealing with the fallout of that, which brings us to our next comics. We have Detective Comics 997 and 998. And these have been real interesting stories. There's something that they're building to, and I'm guessing in 999 that'll kind of come to a head, and then issue 1000 they're probably, well, I know they're going to do like what they did with Action Comics, where it's going to be a bunch of different stories that a bunch of different authors and a bunch of different artists are going to be able to work on. It's going to be a real cool story. It's not going to add anything or take away from anything. Hopefully they can keep Tomasi on as the writer for 1001. I know Action Comics over at DC, well, I guess Detectives DC as well, but Action Comics took a big swing, and at 1001 they brought in Bendis, which, love him or hate him, I mean, he's a big name, and so a lot of people were kind of iffy about it, and so am I. I think, in my mind, the Superman run that Bendis is doing is much better than the Action Comics run Bendis is doing. It's a lot bigger. And that could be the point. You want a low-key Action Comics, make it more Clark Kent, and then Superman is Superman, which it's doing. Action Comics is an okay comic. It's worthy enough for me to pick up and read and buy every month. But if I have to cut comics, it's going to be probably in the talks for getting cut. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Next, we have Batman Who Laughs 2 and 3, which, speaking of Batman Who Laughs, my comic, Magnus the Brave, the guy who reviewed it at Total Geekery, I think it's Total Geekery, something like that, he reviewed our comic. He gave it a 3 out of 3 out of 5, or a 3.3 out of 5. And then we kind of took that a little bit hard. Not that it's a bad review. It's a good review, and he had lots of great things to say about it. But then we were reading some of his other reviews, and he gave the Batman Who Laughs a 3.9. So even if he's on a sliding scale, the fact that we're still in the same point bracket as the Batman Who Laughs is a huge win for me. Anytime my name is in the same conversation as the Batman Who Laughs, even if they're not mentioning it together, the same guy did the article. So, yeah, I was feeling pretty good about it. Next, we have the Flash Annual number 2. We have the Flash 63 and the Flash 64, which was actually part 2 of that crossover that I was talking about. Yeah, the Flash just has so much going on. He's exploring the new forces. He's dealing with heroes in crisis right now. There's a lot happening, and it's all really good writing. It's one of my favorite comics coming out right now, right behind, Thor and Batman and the Batman Who Laughs, all of those things. Yeah, it's just such a good tie-in, and it's so well written, and it's not all about the Flash running fast, which is the one complaint that I have about the CW show. I know a lot of people love it. I'm just not into it because it's just, oh, we have a fast villain, and then to beat him, I have to be faster, and I don't know. It's kind of like with Cyborg when all he does is make football references, and I mean it gets old real quick. But the Flash is dealing with some stuff, and it's really adding a lot of depth to his character. Something else I'm super excited about is Gideon Falls. This is issue number 10. I've got number 11 upstairs. I forgot to grab it. But I just kind of leave these around while I'm reading. And turns out my wife has been picking them up and reading them too. And she picked up, I think it might have been issue 10 or maybe 9. She read 9, 10. And then she was like, well, where's the other one? I need to read it. I was like, oh, I've got all of them. You can pick them up. You can read them. You'll love it. So it's kind of exciting that my wife is getting involved in comics with me, which is really, really cool and also really scary if she decides to go full bore into comics like I am. We might need to kind of downsize because we can't afford our mortgage at that point. But anyway, next is Green Lantern. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I think after this run, after 2 more issues, I'm out. Grant Morrison's writing is just not where I would like it to be for Green Lantern, especially coming off of what it was with the New 52 to what it is now. I'm not digging it. I'm not into it. The story's not really panning out to be anything that I care about. The art throws me off. I'm probably going to pass on it. If you guys agree with me, let me know. If you think I'm an idiot for thinking Grant Morrison's writing in the Green Lanterns is garbage, also let me know. Now, I say Grant Morrison's writing is garbage. That's just because I'm not into it. I fully comprehend that Grant Morrison is a great enough writer to write for DC. So, I'm saying that as an armchair writer. I try to write. He's succeeded in writing. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm not into it. If you are, again, let me know. What do you like about it? What are your favorite Grant Morrison stories? I know he's been around forever, and he's written some big stuff. Like, he's had his hands all over like Final Crisis, I think, and then a couple other things. So yeah, just let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite Grant Morrison story is. Next, we have Heroes in Crisis 4 and 5. And these stories have been amazing. I think Tom King is probably one of the best storytellers. One criticism I've heard from people is that there's not a whole lot of action. There's not enough action. It's all these panel scenes, and it's just talking about characters. I love that. And for somebody to be able to take just panels of characters talking, take that and then turn it into a compelling story, I almost like that more than an action story. Obviously, in comics, you want action, and obviously there's going to be action mixed in, and then it's going to have some big crescendo, which will probably have a lot of action in it. But the fact that it's a mystery and you're putting the pieces together while you're reading the story, it's not telegraphed to you. You have no idea what's going on. You have really interesting characters. And not only do you have really interesting characters, you have characters that you may have never even heard of, but now all of a sudden you want to read more. There was one character, he was from, I think it was Young Justice a long time ago, and I was watching Comics Explained, and he was kind of talking about it, and he said that the character hasn't been even thought of since the early 90s, and he fell off, and nobody ever even cared, nobody missed him, and now all of a sudden he's showing up in Heroes in Crisis, and I'm like, well, now I kind of want to go see what he's about, see who he is, and so I think this could be a move by DC to try to reintroduce characters, see what is interesting to people. But it could also just be Tom King saying, hey, we need characters. Here's characters. Let's make them interesting. If they're going to be here, let's give them a purpose and make it interesting. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how all of this kind of pans out, because a lot of people died. And yeah, I don't know. It's going to kind of suck if DC pulls back the reins and says, surprise, they're all actually alive. Yeah, I don't know. Moving on, I've got Ironheart #1. I know this has been out forever, but I saw it. I picked it up. They had it at my comic book spot as like one of the recommended reads. So I grabbed it. I didn't think it was bad. I liked it. They kind of set everything up. Definitely building on this character from whenever she was in the Invincible Iron Man story. I loved Riri Williams as Ironheart. I think it's a great character. I think it has a lot of potential. And, I mean, honestly, I'm going to pick up the trade just because it's been out for a while. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good ongoing series. And hopefully it can maintain that good storytelling without just retelling all of Iron Man's stories. I think that's one concern that I have about it, is that, she's a super smart girl who's really into what she's doing and kind of pushing everybody else away. And so that story can get kind of stale, because then it's just loner. And then, I don't know. But if it's done right, it can be fantastic. Now, this is a story that's really good, as well as some of the best cover art, and that is Iron Man, Tony Stark's Iron Man. The story is awesome, but man, I can't get enough of the covers. They're amazing. And Iron Man was one that started out kind of, it seemed like there was no real direction it was going. It was setting up a lot of stuff, and then it locked onto one thing, and they're going to kind of explore it. It's not a world-ending thing, but it's enough to kind of introduce people and then kind of pump up the action, make it interesting. I think the next story arc, or even the one after that, is going to be huge. And I think it's going to be very, very well written, as long as Dan Slott stays on it. And again, Dan Slott's another one where I think a lot of people kind of got sick of him whenever he was over at, whenever he did Spider-Man. But he's doing a great job with Iron Man, and so as long as he can keep that up, I'm down. Okay, next we have Justice League Odyssey, which was kind of a splurge for me. Not this particular issue, but just in general, picking it up. For one, I can't stand Cyborg, and Cyborg's the leader of this group. And then I don't know much about Azrael except for what I learned in Detective Comics. I don't know a whole lot about Jessica Cruz, which was with Simon Baz. She's one of the new Green Lanterns, if you didn't know that. And then, who else is there? Starfire. I don't know a whole lot about Starfire. So I think that all of that kind of intrigued me, is that I don't know much about any of these characters except for Cyborg, which, God, Cyborg Rebirth was the worst. Anyway, so I went in very, very skeptical, and I think they're doing a very, very good job of making these characters compelling and keeping me interested, because I was ready to be a one and done. So, I mean, the way that they're building this story up, I have a whole lot of questions, but it's not like plot hole questions. It's not, well, why is this happening? Well, why is that happening? I don't understand this. What's going on here? So it's not one of those. It's, holy crap, what's going to happen next? Why is all of this happening? Why? I don't want to give too much away. So that's why it's just these generic questions. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's very thought provoking, and it makes you want to know what's going on. So much so that I'm not going to pick up the trade. I'm just going to finish out this series. We'll see how the next one goes and play it by ear. Next, we have Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is always just a real fun read. And I mean, there's not really much else you can say. They don't build on each other. Typically, every once in a while, they'll have like a pocket like you stole it, or they'll have like the Dungeons and Dragons one. But yeah, they're just essentially, well, I guess these are more of like two offs because there's two stories in most of the comic books. But yeah, it's just a simple read. It's a fun read. Especially since the show's now on hiatus. They got pushed back. They didn't get canceled, but something is happening with the scheduling. So who knows when the next season's coming up. All right. This next one, I do not read. I didn't read. I don't even know if the story's any good, but I got it strictly for the cover. And it's Spawn Kills Everyone Too. I don't know if this is supposed to be like a spoof off of Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. But yeah, I mean, you just have, I can't even remember what his name is, the creepy-ass clown from Spawn with the Infinity Gauntlet, and then you have all these little baby spawns all around him. Yeah, I picked this one up only for the cover, which... some people have already told me that they hate it, they don't like it, but why? How could you not like it? I don't know. All right, these next ones I picked up from Facebook. It's Superman and Wonder Woman. I did not read these just because these are actual books. I mean, I don't even think they're trades. I think they're just books. So there's 4 of them. It was a Chris Claremont. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read them because I really don't want to like break the spines. It's not like a trade where it's thicker. These are real small. I opened it up. I kind of opened the comic and it was just real stiff. So I really would hate to break that spine on them. But I love the art. It's very, very cartoony, very, I mean, I don't want to say comic booky because it's kind of almost not like a comic book. Yeah, it's great art. It looks like a fun story. I've heard it's a really good story. DC's version of DC Unlimited, I think it's DC Universe, has really disappointed me as far as their comic book selection. They've disappointed me to the point where I'm going to cancel my subscription. I know a lot of people love like the Teen Titans that they have on there, plus they're going to have the Doom Patrol, and they've got a lot of good movies and shows on there, but that's not why I get it. I don't go on Marvel Unlimited hoping that they have TV shows. I go because I want to read digital comics. I have a library of 1 million comics at my fingertips, and I can just read them on my phone, on my computer. I have access to... I'm reading through Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men, like starting from the beginning, and I don't have to buy a single comic. That's what I was expecting DC Universe to be, and it hasn't been. They have like a comic here, a comic there. You can read Batman Rebirth 1, and then you can read issue 1. You can read Batman's Hush story, but you can only read like the second issue, but not any of the other ones. If they ever fix that, if they ever build their library up like they should, I might get back on, but until then, I'm probably out. Again, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have that DC universe, let me know why you have it. Let me know what you think about it. And let me know if it's worth it to you guys. All right, next we have Superman 7 and 8. And this is what I was talking about. Okay, so Bendis really kind of upset me at first because in the Action Comics and Superman, he like broke up the Kent family. His wife and Jonathan went to space with his dad, and then Lois came back, but then she wanted to live on her own, and she didn't want to go live with Clark anymore. And it was just a really weird kind of dynamic that they had, where it was almost like they were separated, but then the separation made things hotter, and they were into each other. Like it was very like midlife crisis sort of. I don't know. I don't know what he was going for there, but yeah, the first thing Bendis did was boom. I'm gonna rewrite Kryptonian history, and I'm gonna split up the Kent family. And so I pushed through it, and then Jonathan just came back in these stories. He's aged up. He's aged up by, what is it? He was 12, 5 years. And he's only been gone for 3 weeks, so they kind of go through and explain that. And right now in this run, what they're doing is Jonathan's telling him about their travels in space. And I don't know if they're going with a certain new direction with Jonathan Kent later on. Sad news is that we're not going to have Super Sons anymore after this Maxi series, probably. Unless somebody just wants to write, oh, this stuff went on before he turned 17. But yeah, that kind of sucks. But, you know, I think it's really good story writing. Bendis has always been excellent at writing younger characters. And he's doing a fantastic job with this. It's so interesting. It's so good. And I just want more. If they could just do a run of, 12, 15, 20 comics of just the adventures of Jonathan Kent in space, I'd be fine with it. It'll probably just be another 3 or 4 issues, but, whatever. I'll enjoy it while it lasts. Next, we have Action Comics. Is it 1007? Again, I'm not... They're building towards something cool. I can see that. Sometimes I can just be a little bit impatient. And as long as it pays off in the end, I'm fine with it being a slow burn. I'm okay with it. Jason Aaron's been building up to the War of Realms for, what is it, like 150 comics now? So I'm cool with the slow burn as long as it's a good story. And I can excuse him splitting up the Kent family as long as it has an important role to play in the story, and it wasn't just I'm going to change as much as possible. So yeah, Action Comics, like I said, it's a good story. It's a solid story. It's a story that I continue to pay for. But if push comes to shove, it's going to be in the conversation of chopping block or not. Super Sons, this is the Maxi series. We have officially passed the halfway point. This story has been very good. It's been all over the place. I'm really liking the young Legion of Doom that they've got going on. It makes for such a good story, and it makes for a new dynamic on the whole conflict between Superman, Batman, the Legion of Doom. But yeah, it's a really good story, and I think it's probably going to be one of the best 12-issue story arcs that is out in comics right now. Next, we have Thor, and this is 2 months before the War of Realms, which is going to be huge. The art in these stories has been real trippy, and at first I wasn't sure about it, but now I'm absolutely in love with the art. It's no Russell Dauterman. Dauterman, all-time favorite comic book artist right now. But yeah, Dauterman is doing the War of Realms, so I'm super pumped about that. But this Thor issue was really, really good. There's a lot of action in it, but the action is sort of just something to fill the page. The conversation that goes on, the dialogue that goes on, that's where the real meat and potatoes of this story is. it's not about the action. It's about what's going on behind the action. And I'm not sure how it's going to add to the story. But these Thor comics leading up to the War of Realms, there's not a whole lot of story to them. It is strictly character building. I think it was Thor #9 wasn't even about Thor. It was about Roz Solomon. So it's just, I think it's Aaron saying, well, we don't have enough time to start a whole new story arc, so let's just go through and punch up these characters so that you really care about them in the coming months. And yeah, if there's anything Jason Aaron can do is make characters interesting. Next we have Walking Dead 168 or 188, sorry, 188. I was only 20 off. It's almost 2 years off. So 188. Yeah, there's not really much to say about The Walking Dead. This has been a very, very, very slow build-up, which means Kirkman is probably building up to something that is going to be very, very, very devastating to a lot of people in his comic. That's just how Kirkman is. And this issue kind of starts to set that up anyway, the way it leaves off, which is going to make a lot of people sad. Some people are going to be excited. I'm both. Next, we have Wolverine, and this will be the last one. So we have Return of Wolverine. We have this awesome variant cover of the Return of Wolverine, #5. And then I'm just going to set these two aside. They were phenomenal comics. I went into the Return of Wolverine thinking this is going to be really, really crappy. It's not going to be a good story. How are you going to shoehorn him back in? Plus, he's got these heat claws, and, you know, I don't know. I just went in thinking this is going to be garbage. I'm going to pick it up because it's a McNiven, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. When Sewell is writing, it's probably going to be good. When McNiven is doing the art, at least I think McNiven did the art. He may have co-written it. I don't know. But yeah, it was really good. It was fantastic. They didn't explain everything, but they left it to whoever's going to pick it up. Hopefully Sewell keeps running with it, but based on what I'm about to show you, it adds some doubt. This Wolverine Infinity Watch. This is the follow-up to #5. I didn't know if this was going to be like a separate thing. I picked it up just because I'm like, oh, okay, well, he was holding one of the stones in the previous comics, and he's been kind of showing up places. Dugan, you... So, the Infinity War and Infinity Warps, that whole dumpster fire that happened, now he's pulling Wolverine into it, and I'm just... It's very annoying. I'm definitely not picking up #2. Depending on how this goes, I might just be done with Wolverine. I don't know. I don't know that I've read anything that I like from Dugan. I don't know that I've seen anything that other people have really liked from Dugan. Until he did the Infinity Wars, he was fairly unknown to me. And I say that I may have read some of his stuff. I just don't remember it. I don't remember if he did Old Man Logan or not. I don't think so. Anyway. Yeah, so I'm probably just going to need to go back and see if he's written anything that I liked. Maybe this is just kind of a slump for him. Maybe Marvel's making him do it. I don't know, but they just need to drop the Infinity Stone. Stop talking about it. I know the movies are coming out, and it's clearly just a cash grab. I mean, that's all it is, and it shows in the writing. It shows in the whole story. I mean, I don't know. It's almost like somebody sat him down and said, "You have to write this about the Infinity Stones, and we have to involve as many people as possible into it, and you don't have a choice." So, yeah, it is very, very disappointing. But yeah, that's all I've got for February. I'm about to start collecting for March, so get ready for that. Let me know what your favorite comics are that you're picking up. Let me know what your least favorite comics are. Let me know what you had to pick up. Let me know what you had to drop. Just let me know. Let me know that you're out there. It gets lonely and cold down here in my basement sometimes. But I've been your host, Ace Knuckles. This has been Monthly Reads for the Comic Rundown. Not the Comic Rundown. The Comic Den. Sorry, I'll get it eventually. Yeah. P.S. Go check out Magnus the Brave. You can still order it on Etsy, I believe. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Catch you later.